on, lift your voices, lift your hands, let's clap, let's get excited. Come on, I want you to, before you sit down, look at somebody and say, this could be your Resurrection Sunday. Now I want you to turn to your second choice and say, this is my Resurrection Sunday. Come on. Woo! Come on, well, you can have a seat. It's Resurrection Sunday. As you can see, we are excited. We are an excited church. We're a pumped up church. Man, is anybody, I need to catch a little breather after that. I was up here jumping and I'm like, man, I got to get up there and talk in a second. I better calm down. I thought Kyle's head was going to go through the roof over here. He was jumping. He only had about 3 inches of clearance, but, man, welcome to Easter Sunday at Oasis Church. We are glad that you're here. Come on, why don't we give one more hand clap for all of our first time guests. We are a very friendly church. You've probably gotten welcomed about 15 times by now, and that's our goal. We want you to get to that point where you're almost uncomfortable, but not quite there yet because we're so friendly. It's not fake. These people really love you. We've been praying for you. We've been praying that you would be here. We've been waiting all week just for you to get here. So welcome. We're excited. My name's Pastor Alex. I'm one of the pastors here, and I'm excited to be sharing with you today. I got some of my fan club over here clapping for me a little bit. But hey, how many of you love Easter? Does anybody love Easter? You just love the holidays? Come on, I love Easter because everybody comes to church on Easter. You know what I'm talking about? Like the in-laws, the outlaws, that crazy neighbor that you're like, I thought I'd never see you. Like security, like, you know he's here. Like, do you know who that guy is? Like, everybody comes to Easter. There's the pictures. Like after the 1 o'clock service, we're going to go take some bluebonnet pictures with my little nephew. He looks just like me. It's not my son. If you see it on Instagram, don't worry. It's my nephew. My in-laws are coming to 1 o'clock service. So it's just a great day. You get dressed up. I'm in a suit. Come on. Are you proud of me? I've worn a suit twice this year, my wedding and today, same suit, but I'm wearing it. So I'm just excited. But I loved Easter. How many of you especially loved Easter when you were a kid? Anybody love Easter when you were a kid? Come on. Easter and Halloween were like my go times. Cause I talk about this a lot. I was a pretty chubby little kid, still a little chubby. So I love the candy. Like, I love the candy. Like, even on Christmas, Mimi will give us candy on Christmas Eve for our little, the little gift baskets, the little stocking. And I'm just like, give me the Reese's, all that sort of thing. But especially when you're a kid, the Easter egg hunts. Come on. This is like the Mecca. Some of you, maybe you have kids and you're like, we know, we've already dealt with this weekend. It's been crazy. But I remember being a little kid and I was just so pumped up, whether it was at church or wherever it was. And usually they line you all up and you're ready to go and you got your little basket. Or if you're like me, I had like a Walmart bag. We ain't that fancy around here. Like I had a Walmart bag, putting stuff in my shirt. But I'm getting all ready. I'm just kidding. My parents gave me an Easter egg basket. But I'm getting ready. And then you always had that one guy that thought he was real funny. Like that one adult guy that'd be like, all right, kids, you ready? Ready, set, peanut butter. And we'd all be like, so I gotta get the candy. I've got my eyes on the candy. I'm like, there's a bush right there. I bet there's 3 pieces right there. There's a car right there. I'm like calculating. He'd be like, ready, set, just kidding. And we are about to jump you. Like if you don't say go, and then you say go, and all the kids, they're just fighting. It turns into the Hunger Games because we hungry for some chocolate. And I'm just like, I'm a big kid, and I'm just like, get out my way, like pushing over little kids. I'm going to get prayer. I've already asked for forgiveness. I'm pushing over little kids. Give me that candy. But then the best was one time we went to some rich people's house. How many of you like rich friends? Anybody have some rich friends? And they didn't put chocolate in their eggs. They put that green, that paper. And I was like, ooh, buddy, $5 when I'm 8 years old? That is like $5. I'm like, that can't even buy me anything now. It doesn't even buy like a coffee. $5. But they had a $50 bill. Come on, a bill in this egg. It was like Armageddon. It was complete anarchy. We were fighting. We were pulling hair. I was ripping eggs out of people's hands. I was like, I got to get this money, got to get this paper. Or how many of you, just one more story. I'm kind of crazy. Just welcome to Oasis Church. I like to tell funny stories, make fun of myself. But how many of you, what about the Easter bunny? We have anybody that likes Easter? How many of you are scared of the Easter bunny? Come on, let's be honest. I think Some of you aren't being honest. Some of you didn't lift your hand for either one, which you got to lift for either one. But I just got to tell a little funny story. My wife is deathly afraid of anyone in costumes. And so the Easter bunny scared her. I don't know if you realize, like, somebody like, hey, come give me a hug, Hannah. I'm going to give you some eggs. Like, that's how she pictured it. But, yeah, Easter bunny scares little kids. Like, that's the Chuck E. Cheese. They had to change Chuck E. Cheese's face. Now he's all smiling and stuff. Anybody remember the old Chuck E. Cheese with, like, the teeth, where he looked a lot like Splinter from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles about to fight somebody? It's like, what rabbit are we going for here? Some of those Easter bunny outfits are not very nice. But I love Easter. I love the festivities. I love dressing up. I got the suit on, taking pictures, all that sort of thing. But really, what we're here about, what we're excited about is not the Easter egg hunt. It's not about the block party we had last week. What we are excited about is Jesus. We're excited to celebrate that today is Resurrection Sunday. Now, I just want you to realize what's going on here, that today is not just a day where we're like, okay, well, this is our God, but we are celebrating that because of Jesus, now we can live. Because of him, we're not just talking about the death and the burial. I think so many people get caught up. They're like, let's talk about the cross. And we got to talk. I don't want to talk about the cross. I want to talk about Jesus coming out of the grave and saying, I am risen. Like, you thought I was dead. Psych. I saw a meme today. Psych, brethren. You know, Jesus is alive. And here's what I want to come to tell you today is when Jesus is in the picture, that death is never final. Whatever is going on in your life, whether it's an actual death, whether it's the death of a dream, whether it's the death of a future, death is never final when Jesus is involved. Are you excited about that? That's what we're celebrating today. We're not celebrating, we're celebrating that with Jesus, death is never the end. And I want to talk about a little bit about transformation today, and how we're going to do that is I want to show a couple pictures, because Easter is really all about transformation. And so many of you, even our serve team, even our core leaders, since last Easter, many of them, they gave their life to Christ on Easter, and now there's been a huge transformation in their life. And so we just want to, let's just scroll through a couple of these pictures slowly. Look at this. Some of these people you may know, some you may not know. Let's go to the next picture. Look at this. I don't know what was behind that smiley face, you know. Now look at this. Come on, let's give a hand clap for that. Come on, Junior. Right here. We got another one right here. Let's go to the next one. Come on. That was the after was first. That's the before. Come on, in the motorcycle club, living that life. Uh-oh, we got some guys right here. Come on. This is Junior. Let's give it up for Junior. Hey, this is what I told Junior yesterday. I said, y'all used to be Vato Loco. Now you Spirito Santos. You know what I'm saying? Now you got the Holy Spirit. You getting fired up. Come on. We got this one. Come on. Look at Sarah. This is right before she gave her life to Christ. Now her and her husband. Just incredible. Uh-oh. Y'all don't know who this is. Y'all aren't ready for it. Look at this. Mr. Donald, come on. Look at that. He's not here today. We're praying for him. He got sick last night, but incredible. Lisa right here. She was here last night. She almost died. There's her being baptized. Come on. We're believing she is being healed. She has a brain tumor. We're believing that she's going to be healed, being baptized. Think that might be it. I don't know. Uh-oh. See, some of y'all thought that Hunter and Jessica were just this little cute Georgetown suburb couple. Y'all don't even know. Look at this. Look how cute that is. Man, we got one more, couple more. Oh, who is that? Oh, come on. Preaching. Father, just incredible. Got Jody right here. Come on. Hey. Uh-oh. Look at that. Serving in the house of the Lord. This is what I think is incredible about Chris. He was a prospect in a motorcycle club, which means you serve, you do whatever you have to do. They command you what to do. Now he's serving in the house of the Lord. I think that's incredible. Incredible change in his life. Come on. Let's give it up for all of those transformations. Come on. Today is Resurrection Sunday, and it could be your Resurrection Sunday. I want to read through some scriptures real quickly, and we're just going to dive into this. 1 Peter chapter 1, verse 3, and it'll be on the screens. Praise be to God, the Father, and the God and the Father of our Lord Jesus Christ. In his great mercy, he has given us new birth into a living hope, not a dead hope, but a living hope through the resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead. How many of you are thankful for hope today? How many of you are thankful that Jesus is alive, a living hope? Galatians chapter 2, verse 20. I have been crucified with Christ, and I no longer live, but Christ lives in me. The life I live in the body, I live by faith in the Son of God, who loved me and gave himself for me. We've talked about it for the last couple of weeks in our last series, God's plan, that Jesus, his life wasn't taken. He wasn't forced, but he freely gave it for you. Not just the good people, not just the people on the stage, but he gave his life for you. One more, Romans chapter 6, verse 7. Because anyone who has died has been set free from sin. Now, if we died with Christ, we believe that we will also live with him. For we know that since Christ was raised from the dead, he cannot die again. Death no longer has mastery over him. Here's what I want you to think about, and this is in the sermon. I just want you to think about this. Really, Resurrection Sunday is the day that death died. It's the day that death no longer has control over us. Death no longer has mastery over us. Because when you have a hope in Jesus, you always know that there's something after death. Either God's going to raise you from the dead or you're going to go on to glory. But there's always something. Death is not final when you are in Jesus, when you are in Christ. For we know that since Christ was raised from the dead, he cannot die again. Death no longer has mastery over him. The death he died to sin once and for all. But the life he lives to God. Death is not final when Jesus is involved. And this is really personal to our family. I just want to share a story with you from my grandfather's life. Those of you that don't know, my grandmother, Mimi's over here looking great in her teal shirt. She brought me an Easter basket last night. She was looking out for me. But they were missionaries in West Africa, and my grandfather went first while they were living here in the United States, the first time that he ever went. And he felt God to call him there, and they really talk about when he came back, he was completely changed. I don't know if you've ever met someone like that where they go through an experience. Maybe it's a good experience. Maybe it's a near-death experience, whatever it is, but they're instantly changed. It's like there's something different about you. And so they said when Poppy went to this country, when he went to preach and he was changed, he came back, he left his heart in Africa. We actually went back to look at his work several years ago and just kind of go back to where he left his heart, because that's where his legacy is. He started churches and Bible colleges and schools for children and all these incredible things. But the first time he went, he told this story, and he was preaching one night, and he's preaching. It's a kind of a broken English, so he's kind of preaching in English. It is an English-speaking country, but it's very broken. And while he's preaching, a woman walks in the church and begins walking down the center aisle. And if you know anything about church, that's not really like the kosher thing to do, or like, hey, kind of use the side, don't distract anybody. And so she comes and stands dead center in front of him while he's preaching, and it kind of gets to the point where it's like, okay, let's address this. Like, what do you need? And while she was walking down, she had a bundle in her arms. And in this culture, it's very common for people to be carrying things in bundle, carrying sticks. It was night. She could have been going home to prepare a meal. So that's kind of what they assumed that it was. And she opened it. And while she was opening it, it was revealed that it was actually her dead child. It was an infant baby that had passed away, that has now been dead for several days. The stench, the rigor mortis, it was cold. It was very malnourished, just very small. And so she opens this baby and she shows it to my grandfather. And so she begins to tell the story, and he's like, what's going on? She said, well, my husband, she calls him Bwana, which means the big white guy. So she's Bwana, and she begins to tell him the story. And she says, our baby died, and my husband said, I want you to go do something and don't come back until the baby is alive again. So go to the witch doctor, go to the shaman, go to the doctor, go to the spiritualist, whatever you have to do, but go get this baby to live again. Because this is a very naturalist culture, voodoo, black magic, all that sort of thing. That's what they believe. And so she went to everyone, they prayed, they put the hexes, all that kind of stuff, and nothing happened. And so this lady, her hope is beginning to diminish after days of walking the streets, of walking around, trying to find something to bring her baby back to life. And I don't know if we have any parents in here. I'm not a parent yet, but I understand what it means when a child, when you have a child, you begin to put your hopes and your dreams in that child. It's not like, okay, well, I'm going to sacrifice what I want to do, and I want this child to go farther and faster than I have ever been. And so I want to put all my hopes and all my dreams in this child. And then when your child dies, it's like your future dies. So she's walking the street. She's trying to find hope. And someone came to her. I don't know who it was. We don't know who it was. But they told her, they said, there's this man named Jesus. And if you can find this man named Jesus, he can raise your baby from the dead. He can bring your baby back to life. And so she's like, who is this man, Jesus? And he said, well, usually you can find him in a big house, aka a church. You can find him in a big house, and it'll have a symbol like this on the top. It'll have a cross like this. She doesn't know what a cross is. She's never heard of Jesus. She's never heard of the resurrection. All she knows is that someone told her, if you can find Jesus, if you can just get to Jesus, you can experience this resurrection. And so she comes in to the church. She comes down to the front. And so she asks my grandfather, she says, I'm looking for Jesus. And how do you explain to someone in broken English, someone that does not understand the Bible, they don't understand that Jesus lives in us, all those things that we just read, how do you explain to them, Jesus, he's here, but he's not actually here? You know, you can imagine that's a little awkward of lost in translation. It's not like he's in the back, preparing his sermon, let's bring him out. He's not here. So my grandfather, very much like me, very just black and white, practical, did the only thing he knew how to do. He just prayed for her and anointed her, raised it from the dead. We believe that you can pray for people, they can be raised from the dead. So he prayed, and nothing happened. And so you can imagine just that anticlimactic moment where he's preaching, he's talking about all this stuff, he's praying, they're praying, and nothing happens. So disappointed again, there's another person, another God that she went to, and it disappointed her again. And so she just gives up. She goes home. She tells her husband, I'm sorry. I tried. I went to everyone, but there's no one. Let's bury the baby in the morning. And so what they decided to do is they wrapped the baby tightly so that no bugs or animals or rats or anything would get into the baby, and they put it on the table. And while they put it on the table, the dad actually laid down and was there with a knife protecting it. And at the same time, my grandfather was in another home in a different part of the city, and he was being tormented. How can you call yourself a preacher? You came over here to Africa to do all this stuff, and how can you call yourself a preacher if you prayed for something and nobody happened? You just need to go home. You don't belong here. The spirits that are here are stronger than your God. The gods that are here, hearing all these voices. And I think whenever we go through a dark time where we really hope for something, we really believe in something, and it doesn't happen, we all experience those voices. Maybe some of you even today are hearing those voices. You don't belong in church. Why? You're coming on Easter Sunday. Well, yeah, you should be real proud of yourself. You think you're a big deal. We start to hear these voices, and they're trying to detour us from what God is doing in our life. And so that night, my grandfather, instead of just, because he couldn't sleep, he just began to pray. He got up and began to pray. God, you called me here. You sent me here. What's the meaning out of this? What's the lesson out of this? And God sent him to John chapter 11, which we're going to read in just a moment, which is the story of Lazarus being raised from the dead. And he's like, God, I just prayed for someone to be raised from the dead, and they weren't raised from the dead. Why would you? This is like spitting in my face. This is why would you? And he said, and God told him, I want you to preach that tomorrow night at the same church. So my grandfather gets up, the same church, they all were there the night before, and he begins to preach about how Jesus can raise the dead, and Jesus can resurrect you, and he can resurrect you physically, he can resurrect you spiritually, and all this sort of thing. And in the middle of him preaching, the same lady comes walking down the aisle. But this time, she's holding a fat baby. She's holding a baby that's kicking and screaming and full of life. But listen, my grandfather, oh man of great faith, he says, is this your other baby? She said, no, Buana. This is the baby that was dead, and now the baby is alive. Jesus wasn't here last night, but Jesus came to my house. Jesus came to my house, and he raised my baby from the dead. So now my baby is alive. Can you imagine that revival that broke out? He's preaching John chapter 11, Lazarus, and there's a live baby happening right there. And so it's an incredible story, and he comes back and he begins to tell this story. And that's why we as a church and us as pastors, we have so much faith, because we believe in miracles. We believe in people being healed, people being raised from the dead. But today, I don't want to just talk about you being physically raised from the dead, but I want to talk about, because I don't think there's any dead people in here right now. Check your pulse. I don't know. But I think there are a lot of people in here that you're dead in other ways. Maybe you're dead in your sin. You're dead in your trespasses, as the Bible would say. Or maybe your hope for the future is dead. Or maybe you had a calling, or you had something that you felt like a destiny was on your life, but now that destiny is dead. You're like, I had to do that by the time I'm 30, and I'm 40 now, and there's no way that'll ever happen. I'm just going to kind of work a minimum wage job, and I'm just going to do what I have to do to get through, and that's just how it's going to be. Today, I want to talk about how today could be your Resurrection Sunday. Today could be the day that your dreams come alive, that your future comes alive, the dead and dormant things inside of you, that it could come alive today in Jesus' name. Do you believe that? Come on. That was the longest introduction I've ever done. So let's get into the sermon now. John chapter 11. You can have it on the screens, or if you have a Bible. This is the same passage that my grandfather preached out of that day when the baby was raised from the dead. This is what it says in verse 1. Now a man named Lazarus was sick. He was from Bethany, the village of Mary, and the village of Mary and her sister Martha. This Mary, whose brother Lazarus lay sick, was the same one who poured perfume on the Lord and wiped his feet with her hair. Anybody remember that story? She busted in. She wasn't supposed to be there. It was all the religious people. She comes in, washes his feet. And so Jesus is very close with their family. These are not people, these are not just followers of Jesus. These aren't just people that have heard of Jesus. These are really close family friends of Jesus. So the sister sent word to Jesus, Lord, the one you love is sick. So we know Jesus loves Lazarus. There's not many people that it specifically says, but we know that he loved Lazarus. When he heard this, Jesus said, this sickness will not end in death. No, it is for God's glory, so that God's Son may be glorified through it. Now Jesus loved Mary and her sister and Lazarus. Check this out. So when he heard that Lazarus was sick, he stayed where he was for 2 more days. I love how it said, hey, he loved them so much that he stayed for 2 more days. He loved them so much that he didn't get hurry. He didn't get in a hurry. He didn't run. He didn't get on a horse. He didn't even get on a donkey. He was just like, I'll be there in a couple days. Can you imagine hearing that news? Like if this was us, if we were writing the Bible and if we were Jesus, it would have been like, I'm on it. Like, disciples, y'all close down the service. I got to get in the car. I got to get on the airplane. Let's go. 2 days. I don't know if any of you have had a sick one before, but you rush straight there. It's not, well, let me see how it turns out in 2 days. See if I can fit it into my schedule. We'll see how it goes. But he waits for 2 days. Let's skip down to verse 32. This is actually when Jesus is arriving 2 days later. When Mary reached the place where Jesus was and saw him, she fell at his feet and said, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. So in between, in this 2 days, Lazarus has died. Jesus waited, and because Jesus waited, they believed that he could heal him, but because he waited, if he would have just been here, if God would have just been on time, my brother wouldn't have died. Have any of you prayed a prayer like that? God, if you would have just answered my prayer when I wanted you to, none of this would have happened. Everything would have turned out all right. My marriage would be all right. My finance. If you would have just done, God, if you would have just done what I said, I'm smarter than you. If you would have just done, come on, I've done that before. We can be honest. And that's what she's saying. Lord, if you had been here, my brother would have not have died. When Jesus saw her weeping and the Jews who had come along with her also weeping, he was deeply moved in the spirit and troubled. Where have you laid him? He asked. Come and see, Lord, they replied. And this is shortest verse in the Bible if you want to memorize one. John chapter 11, verse 35. Jesus wept. If anybody asks you to memorize a verse, there you go. I'm helping you out today. Then the Jews said, see how he loved him? But some of them said, could not the one who opened the eyes of the blind man also kept him from dying? We know he's healed people before. Why the one that he loved? Why did he let this one slip past him? He was so worried about everyone else. Why did he let one of his best friends die? Jesus, once more deeply moved, came to the tomb. It was a cave with a stone laid across the entrance, very similar to the stone that was placed over Jesus' tomb, kind of foreshadowing here. Verse 39, take away the stone. But Lord, said Martha, the sister of the dead man, by this time there's a bad odor. For he has been there for 4 days. And just to give you a little history, 4 days, the Jews believed that the spirit would then leave the body. So you could be resurrected 1 through 3, and that was kind of normal. But on day 4, your spirit would go be with the Lord, and there was no longer a spirit in your body. So she's saying, it's over. Like, you're too late. It's gone. I just realized he's been dead for 4 days, and he was sick when Jesus stayed for more than 2 days. I just realized that. He was like, I'm going to be there in 2 days. Just kidding. I'm going to wait a little bit longer because I'm just that good. Then Jesus said, did I not tell you? Did I not tell you? You see me do all this before. Did I not tell you that if you believe, you will see the glory of God? Verse 41, so they took away the stone. Jesus looked up and said, Father, I thank you. I love this little roast right here. I thank you that you have heard me. I knew that you would always hear me, but I said this for the benefit of the people standing around me here, that they may believe that you sent me. So I knew you sent me, but I'm just going to help all these doubters around me. I'm going to help all these haters. I'm going to pray just so that they hear it, just so that they know. And when he said this, Jesus said with a loud voice, Lazarus, come out. Come out. The dead man came out, his hands and feet wrapped with strips of linen and a cloth around his face. And Jesus said to them, take off the grave clothes and let him go. Take off the grave clothes and let him go. With just a few minutes left today, what I want to preach to you, what I want you to get on this Resurrection Sunday, I want you to say to yourself, I want you to say to your situation, come out of this grave. Why don't we just say it together? Come out of this grave. Come on, come out of this grave. Because there's some of you right now that your hope is dead. Your dreams are dead. You're waiting on God to get there, but he's not gotten there yet. And I want to pull out three things. Just a few minutes left. Number one, how many of you feel like your hope, your dream, your destiny, the prayers that you have prayed, they have been delayed? That you've been praying for years. You've been asking God for, God, I want to have children. Please bless us with children. I want to get this job. I know I'm called to minister, but not yet. Not yet. You know God's hearing your prayers. You know he hears our prayers, but not yet. Why would you wait 2 days if you love someone? Why would you wait? God, why? If you really wanted to use me, if you really love me, why won't you just give me what I want right now? Why won't you just give me what I need right now? I'm praying. I've thought it through. I know all the answers. I know the whole situation. God, I'm praying for it right now. Well, here's the answer. God does not operate on our timetable. God does not operate on what we want to do because he knows the beginning and the ending. He's seen it all. He's been there before. And so he's not going to do what you want to do. He's going to do what he knows he's supposed to do. He doesn't operate on our timetable. Here's the thing. Me and my wife, we were long distance for 18 months. And I really wanted her to live here or me to live there. It was Australia. I would have loved to move there. Come on, the beach every day. It would have been amazing. But I knew that there were some things that God was teaching us in the process that if we would have had it in the moment, we would not have been ready for what we're praying for. Some of you are praying for something in your life, and if you got it today, you would not be ready for it. And so God is trying to teach you in a process, and I know we don't like that word in this generation, in this world, because we're a microwave generation with a crock pot God. But God is trying to teach you something through a process. And here's the other thing. The last thing I'll say about the delay is maybe, just maybe, God isn't delaying for you. Maybe you could get it right now. But he knows if he gave it to you in 18 months, if he gave it to you in a year, not only is it going to affect you, but it's going to affect those around you. Because here's the thing, if he would have just raised Lazarus from the dead, it would have been a quick little side note in the Gospel of John. We would have been just, okay, he raised Lazarus from the dead. Awesome. He raised other people. No big deal. But he knew that all the people around them, the family, the whole town, and now 2,000 something years later, that we're still going to be getting something out of Lazarus' delay. That we're still going to be learning. It would have been easier for Lazarus. It would have been easier for Martha and Mary and all of the townspeople. But what if your delay, what if God holding something from you in the future is going to affect everyone around you? What if it's going to help other people believe in Jesus? What if it's like Jesus' prayer and he said, hey, I got you, but I'm doing this for those around you. I'm going to get this so that those around you can get something. So he was delayed. And then the second part is he died. Not only was it delayed, but some of you have been delayed so long that now your dreams are actually dead. Your hope is actually dead. You just completely given up. You said, well, God, I prayed that prayer 20 years ago. I prayed that prayer a year ago. And I thought this was going to be the person that I was going to be with. And there's just no hope now. They're dating someone else, or, there's no hope now. That position's already been filled. I can't, this is just, our dreams are dead. When you wait so long that your dream's dead. You've been crying so long, you're just like, I'd just rather give up on it. I'd rather not be frustrated about it. And you've been there before. I know I've been there. I just don't want to worry about it anymore. I guess I didn't actually hear from God. I guess that's not what he told me I needed to do. I'm just going to give up on it. So you've had this, but it's too late. But I love, just like we've been saying, I want to say over and over and over and over, that even though Lazarus was dead, Jesus was not done. Even though death had come in, death did not have mastery over what Jesus was going to do. And so some of you need to realize that even if something is dead in your life, that Jesus isn't done. Death does not scare Jesus. Death of your dreams, death of an actual person, that does not scare Jesus, because Jesus, after his resurrection, has mastery over death. We just realized that. And so anything that is dead in your life, Jesus is not done with it. Jesus is not done with your future. He's not done with your calling. Some of you have given up. He's still preparing it. He's like, I'm getting ready to resurrect you. Just hold. I know it's been 4 days. I know it's starting to stink. I know you're starting to give up. I know your family's starting to say some other stuff. I know your family's starting to say that you were wrong. I know all these people, but just hold on a little bit. Just hold on a couple days. Even when you think it's way too far gone, I'm not done yet. Jesus is not done yet. Do you believe that in this place today? He was not done yet. The last part that I want to get to is when Jesus called Lazarus out of the grave. So he was delayed. Then Lazarus died. And the last part is he was detained. When he called Lazarus, and I don't know if you've ever seen any of those old Christian movies where Lazarus, he's like the mummy and he comes out of the grave, he's kind of floating and there's like haze behind him and stuff. We could have turned up the hazer and I could have just done a reenactment right now, coming up. But we read the Bible and then we know that just with the traditions, Lazarus, that much like the Egyptian culture, the Middle East culture, they would have essentially mummified him. They would have wrapped him in linen strips and then poured an oil over him that would have made those strips hard. And it would have been so tight on his face that it would have created a mask. And what these cultures would do is they would create a death mask. Maybe some of you have been to museums that do that. So when the bones and the flesh decays, the family could go into the grave and they could take out the death mask, because this is before pictures, this is before, and they could have an image of what that person once looked like. And so Lazarus was covered. He was restricted. He was alive, but he was still trapped. Some of you, you've been coming to church. You've been believing in God. You've given your heart to Christ. You've been saved, but you're still trapped. You're still wrapped up in some things from your past life. You're still wrapped up in your grave clothes. You're still wrapped up in your addictions and your temptations and those old phone numbers and those old Snapchat accounts. And you're still wrapped up in some things. And so what needs to happen today is you need to be loosed. Not only do you need to be risen from the dead, but you actually need to take the grave clothes off. Because listen. Here's what happened. If Jesus had raised him from the dead and he did not take the grave clothes off, he would have died again. There's some world record holders, but most people, just the average person in here, if we were about to do it, everybody hold your breath, not really, but if we were all about to hold our breath, the average person could hold their breath for 2 to 2.5 minutes before you start passing out and dying, before you start having brain injuries, before you die. Unless you've been trained or whatever, but that's the average person. I don't think Lazarus was a Navy SEAL. I think he was just a normal dude. And so if he would have come out and the mask would have still been on him, the mask, his old life, what he used to look like, what he looked like when he was buried, what he looked like before he was raised from the dead, what he looked like before Christ came into him, before the life of Christ came into him. If he would have kept that on, he would have died again. And there's some of you that if you keep the things on you, you're going to go back into sin. You're going to slip back into the world. You're going to slip back into old addictions, old temptations, the things that messed you up before will just mess you up again. Because God can keep raising you from the dead, but if you don't take those things that are restricting you off, then you're not going to be able to live. Here's the thing. Some of you are resurrected, but you're still restricted. And you got to take that restriction off. You got to take that off. You got to be a new person. You got to take off that old mask, that old identity, the thing that you used to look like, that thing that people used to call you by. Put that off. Come on, man. Some of you, I'm just throwing out a couple phrases, maybe you get this. Some of you may be delivered, but you're still detained. Some of you may have been delivered for something, but if you're still wrapped up in it, you're going to fall right back into it. You're going to keep doing the same things over and over and over again. So someone took off his grave clothes. So you got to take off these things. You got to take off these old mindsets. And so if you're in this place today, maybe you're in one of those three categories. Maybe you feel like God is delaying your promise. Maybe you know God has called you to do something. God has a plan for your life. And even if you don't believe that, I just want to let you know right now that we believe every person has a calling by God. Every person has a destiny. Every person has a future. So if you've come in here today and you don't have any hope for the future, you feel like you have no promise for the future, I want to let you know that you have a hope for the future. That God has a plan for your life, that He has a purpose for your life. You're not an accident. I don't care what your parents did. You're not an accident. I don't care what teachers told you. You have a plan. You're going to be something in your life. God has something more for your life. You don't have to stay in this state of being hopeless and being lost. So maybe you feel like your miracle is delayed, whether that's a physical miracle, whether that's something spiritual, whether it's emotional, whether you've been dealing with depression and anxiety, whatever it is. Or maybe you're in this place and you just kind of given up. You're like, I've been delaying so long, it's just dead in my life now. My marriage is dead. My career's dead. My relationships are dead. My finances are gone. Everything's over. I just might as well give up. Death is not final when Jesus is involved. He knows the end from the beginning. So the reason He's not worried is because He's already been there. You've never been there, but Jesus is already there. So He's saying if you can just wait a second and catch up to what I've already put the miracle in your future. I've already placed it there. It's 5 years away. It's 10 years away. It's 1 week away. You just got to catch up to it. So if you can just hold on for a couple of days, even if it's dead, even if there's a smell, even if there's a stench, whatever it is, just keep holding on. I'm coming. I'm coming. The cross is coming. Victory is coming. Resurrection is coming. And then maybe, and if you stand with me in this moment, maybe you're in the place today and you feel like you're still detained. You're like, I believe in Jesus. I've gotten freedom. I've asked for forgiveness from my sins, but I'm still wrapped up. I'm still falling into the same sin, the same stuff, the same old addictions, whatever. Today, I believe that today can be when Jesus sets you free. Now, hey, now listen to this. You may have to do some practical things because Jesus didn't take the grave clothes off for them. He said, you got to get some people around you that are going to help you take these grave clothes off. And so some of you may need to get some people around you that when you start to wrap yourself up again, they say, hey, I'm going to take that off for you. Yeah, I'm going to delete that number from your phone. Yeah, I'm going to do that for you because I don't want you to get wrapped up again. I don't want you to get wrapped up again. So I'm going to pray a prayer for each of these situations. And we said this in the team meeting all day long. This is our 2nd out of 4 services. We're believing God's going to do something every service. But here's the thing. You already hear the music behind me. Today is not a somber day. Good Friday is a somber day. Today is Resurrection Day. Today's a party. Today was when we believe, yes, we're celebrating the resurrection of Jesus, but what we're about to celebrate is your resurrection. What we're about to celebrate is you raising from the dead, is you taking off the grave clothes.